Howdy folks, we're just going to give a little couple tips about some fiberglass at home when you're doing it outside a factory. I just did 3 little layups here, one across that trim. Looks pretty ratty. This one looks about half decent, and this one actually looks a lot better than it looks right now on camera. You're seeing white bubbles underneath here. This isn't lack of saturation in the cloth, it's actually from tape underneath. I laid tape across this part and then laid glass over top because I don't want these two surfaces to stick to each other. I'm going to peel the glass off the tape after it hardens. But there's some air bubbles and little moisture under the tape from yesterday's rain. Anyway, the point I want to get at is when you do fiberglass in a factory, you have a form. You already know how much glass you need and how much resin you need, and it's all done into the form. You lay in the resin, you lay in the glass and pour in the resin, and then you vacuum seal it with a vacuum bag, and they suck all the air out. And that vacuum pressure forces all the resin into the cloth, and you get full saturation, or at least 90, 95, 98% saturation. Now, you hear a lot of fiberglass workers talking about doing it in the shipyard or at the marina or in their backyard, wherever, talking about rolling tip, where they use a roller and a brush tip. Well, I'm going to tell you that those rollers are actually very overrated. Let me explain. If you're working on a flat surface and in a straightaway, a long stretch, yeah, then the roller's a good idea. But to be honest, you're going to spend more time cleaning that roller with acetone than you are using it. And it's really not going to get any better saturation than if you were to just use a brush tip. All right. When you're doing jobs at home without a vacuum seal or without just laying it into a form and pouring it in, the factory method where you're buying resin by the 55-gallon drum and using it all up in one day, if you're not doing it that way, then the best way to get good saturation is what I call dip and tip. Okay, now skip the roller because you're just going to spend hours and hours cleaning the roller and poking out the gaps in between, and you're really not going to get much use out of it. What little use you do get, you could get better results with your chip brush. These are disposable $2-3 chip brushes. You buy them by the 2 dozen and they're cheaper. Buy them by 60 at a time if you got a big project. Buy a lot of them because you're going to use them. They're cheap, they're not fine, they're not made for doing fine paint jobs. They're made for spreading resin. And what they mean by tip is take the tip of the brush and tap, 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 tap. When you see any white bubbles in the fiberglass cloth, keep tapping until you see. And if you need to add more resin, spread it out and then keep tapping until you see those little white spots go away. And as you can maybe you can see what I'm talking about right here. There's a little bit of right in there. You can see a little bit of white where I should have tapped it a little longer, and I didn't get perfect saturation there. Hopefully by the time it hardens it will absorb into those fibers. If not, no big deal. No big deal. Okay, the way to get a job done in your backyard or in the shipyard is do small pieces like this. This is actually 2 different pieces here. Get you a tub that's square and rectangular or wide, open at the top, and lay the whole cloth into it. Lay the whole strip of cloth into it. Put a good thick pair of gloves, neoprene gloves, not neoprene. Oh, they're not polyvinyl. What is those glove type? I forget what they're called. Now, I use them all the time, and now I can't remember the name of them. They are nitrile gloves. You need a thick nitrile glove because if you use um, any other type of glove, the resin will melt through it. Okay, and you're gonna get your hands wet with resin every time. Okay, so what I do is I do any strips that I don't need to dip. I do those first so that my hands stay clean while I'm working the brush. And then as soon as I get to these strips where, like there, it's very hard to get your fiberglass to lay over a corner, especially a sharp corner, or you got an inside corner on one side and then an outside edge on the other with a very short distance in between. You're going to have a hard time getting that to lay down all the way. Don't try. Okay, the best you can do is dip the cloth so that it's as saturated as it's going to get. Just drop the whole cloth into your tub of resin, then lay it on there and tap, tap, brush, brush, tap, tap, and do what you can to get it to lay up. But if you got these little corners here that are sticking up, don't let that stop you. Get it to lay down the best you can. That's all going to get painted over. I don't care. This is not structural. It's just a lip to re-divert rain from going in, so I can hook a tarp here and pull it across this opening and cover the openings of the canoe, and any rain that's outside that tarp will drip off the deck and back into the water. That's all it's for. On here, these rails here, they're just so I can put eyelets on the inside, so I can hook some netting inside the canoe and have some storage space that's up off the floor. That way my stuff that I put in the net don't get wet. Okay, that's all that trim is for. It's just a lightweight, thin piece of wood that's glassed over. It doesn't matter if there's an air bubble or two in it. As long as I got good coverage that I can paint over, I got a solid structure. I don't care if that wood rots out in 2 years. If it does, all the better because I can take the rotten wood out. I can cut a hole on the one face and gouge the rotten wood out and shoot foam in there, and I'll have an even lighter weight boat with positive flotation. Okay. So anywhere where this wood rots out, glory be. I'm cool with it. As long as the main structure of the boat is solid, that's what matters. Okay. So the point is dip and tip. Dip the whole cloth in, lay it down, spread it out. Add more resin if you need. Spread the resin around. Use the brush to push resin. Don't brush the cloth because what you're going to do is you're going to be pulling fibers up and piling them up in places and making them stick up. And you want it to lay down. So what you want to do is just push like so and squeeze the resin across the cloth until it gets into the areas you need it to be. Kind of use it like a squeegee. But dip and tip, use your brush and screw that roller. The roller is good for big, wide, flat, you know, areas. If you're doing the top deck of a big 40-foot yacht, yeah, then you're going to need a roller. But when you're doing, look at this canoe, it's all small curves and short edges, and like, I'm not even worried about getting things straight. I'm looking for structure, strength, and a basic design. Like, I'm looking for being able to sail it, stability. I don't care how it looks up close, as long as from a distance it looks decent. That's all I care about. And this is all going to be gel coated, so it'll look good from a distance. That's all that matters. I can, years down the road, I can add more and smooth out the shape and get it all perfectly straight. If I want to add to it, that's great. But right now, I just want to get it together and launch it. The idea is proof of concept. I need this vessel so I can put a top on it. I can show that I can sail a canoe from here to Timbuktu, and I want to try out some different technology, some ideas that I have, energy efficient, air cooling, a motor that runs on multiple types of fuel, things you don't have to buy. The idea is I want to be able to run it on things I gather out of the woods, like sticks or coal. You know, I want to be able to run it even on the sun. And I don't mean with solar and electric, because solar electric is only a solar panel only gathers what a small percentage, less than 25% of the energy coming at it. I need something that's more like 95% energy efficient. So um, eventually, this craft hopefully will have some hydrofoils under it coming from under. I'd like to attach hydrofoils to the outriggers that go under the fuselage of the main hull and connect the two outriggers underneath. And that way, when this thing starts going, it'll come up out of the water and have a fraction of the friction between the hull and the water. That means I can go as fast as the wind or faster. That means, I'll be making record speed. Like I can make the kind of speeds that motorboats make on wind power. And you see what I'm getting at. Hopefully you understand what I'm getting at. But that's, that's way down the road when I have another $3,000 to put into it. Right now I just want to get it finished, coat it, put the sails on it and rigging, put the rudders and what do you call them, lee boards, mount the lee boards, rudders, and put some gear in it and take it on a trip. Show you guys what all this work has been about. I've been working on it all dang year, and I'd like to finally do something with it. If I was trapped on a deserted island with a canoe and needed something I could sail, this would be a lot more rudimentary, more like the old water skipper I had. It would be like two sticks going across the middle with some jugs, some empty jugs full of air or foam on either side, and that's it. Like I don't. This rig here is designed to hold triple the weight that I had on the old water skipper, at least. To handle a lot more speed, a little rougher weather, higher waves, stronger winds. Um, I got the gunnels up another 4 inches higher than the other one had. I got these wings up higher. Um, the mounts, the outriggers are much longer. Instead of having a 2-foot outrigger, when a 2-foot outrigger hits the water, it really digs in, causes a lot of drag, and slows you down quite a bit. Um, if they're up above the water where they only touch when you lean, well, that's good, because as soon as you start going too fast, you tip over to the side, your outrigger hits the water, and you start dragging and you slow down. Okay, great, but then you're plowing into the water. Okay, what I wanted was outriggers that are almost the full length of the boat, so that they're pretty much full time touching the water. And the main hull of the boat is a little bit deeper than the outriggers, but as soon as it all sits down on the water, all three hulls are going to be touching. So it's a trimaran. They're not just stabilizers. Okay, now I want these spaces between the front and back wings to store jugs of water that will offer weight. It's a storage out of the way where my water jugs aren't up there in my face, but at the same time they're over here also adding weight to the outrigger so that it doesn't lift up when the wind hits the sail. It means I can put more sail area up without flipping over. I can take bigger waves. It adds ballast to the system on both sides. And as I use up water, I get a little lighter, and that means I just don't go quite as fast, or maybe I'll go faster because I'm lighter. But I can't handle as big as rough a weather. Okay, so it's give and take, but and I get more water back in my system, and I'm back to where I was. The idea is to have more capacity, more range, more speed, rougher weather, room for another person, That's one thing. I had people wanted to join me on the last trip, and it was me and 700 pounds of gear and a dog. And, I had to tell them, no, I'm already up to my gunnels in water. Like I can't take another pound of weight. And with this system, I should be able to carry another 200, 300 pounds of weight that I'm not going to bring with. So that gives me room for somebody, um, another person, and a little gear, maybe a little dog of theirs and some dog food or whatever. Um, can take on a passenger, maybe even add some decking between the front and back wings and take people across from, on short jaunts. Like say they want to ride from the main shore to the island or something. Cool, I can do that. Hop on the wing and grab a paddle, help out, whatever. But anyway, skip the roll and tip. Just dip and tip. What I call dip and tip. Dip the cloth, get it good and saturated, and use the tip of the brush to tip. And do small pieces. Take your time. Spend the time measuring out, doing the prep work. And that way, when you get ready to do a layup, it's all laid out and you have less mistakes. Okay, these little hairs sticking out, that if I don't like the saturation on the end of that stick, I'm just going to come over with the grinder and grind it off. As long as the main part of it holds it in place now. So I'm not sitting there trying to hold a stick in place while I'm laying fiberglass over it. Okay, if I grind off the end, I don't like that air pocket, fine, I'll grind off, or I'll just go over it. No big deal. Like I'm just looking to get the right shape that I can paint over. All right, but that's the great thing about glass is if you got a little, do it Bob Ross style. There's no mistakes. There's happy little errors, you know, and you can always grind that off and come back over and put another piece of cloth over the end, a little trim piece that goes over that edge corner there. No big deal. Okay, so don't panic about being perfect. Um, this vessel is far from perfect, but I'll tell you what, it's exactly what I need. Exactly. And when I go to DMV to register it, they look at it, there's going to be no doubt that it's homemade because they take one look at it and see all the irregularities in it, and they're going to say, yep, that's homemade. Nobody's going to look at it and say, that looks factory made. That's too perfect. But I am documenting all this material and the time. That's why I'm making these videos. But also so you guys can see my progress. Hope you enjoy. And until next time, have a great day.